Recording in progress.
I was going to say, let's start the recording. If you could take roll.
Okie doke. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Aguajito Oaks. Okay, Alta Mesa,
Here.
Casanova Oak Knoll, Deer Flats,
Here.
Del Monte Beach, Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Present.
Downtown,
Here.
Fish Flats,
Where?
Fisherman Flats,
Here.
Glenwood,
Here.
Monterey Vista,
Here.
New Monterey, Oak Grove,
I'm here, the alternate.
Okie doke.
Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Old Town, Skyline,
Here.
Villa Del Monte. Oh, you know what? I think I see April. April, are you? Oh, sorry.
I'm here.
Old Town. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Richard Russello is here now also.
Oh, okie doke. Got Richard. Thank you.
Okay. First order of business is introduction of new 2022 NCIP members and alternates. Anyone here who is not previously on it, why don't you introduce yourselves? You can put your hand up and I'll call you guys one at a time. Or do we have any new people?
Yes, our most recent addition is Chinyere Ogbonna, and I think I just saw her, but don't know if she just, exited by accident, perhaps.
Hello.
Yep, she's
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Chinyere?
Yes, can you hear
Just
me?
do a quick introduce. Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, my name is Chinyere Ogbonna, and I am actually relatively new to Monterey. So I moved October 2020, and I live in New Monterey, and I love New Monterey. So I definitely was excited to find ways to be more involved with the community.
Well, welcome, Chinyere. I'm Rick Hoyer. I'm the chair until someone decides to take over from me, which hopefully someone will this year. I'm from Alta Mesa. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who's new?
I don't know, Alyssa, I was on mute. Did you get me for downtown?
Ella? Is that
yeah.
Bella?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bella's, you've been on for, well, right before
Yes, but I was on mute, so I didn't know if you heard me that I was here. So anyway,
this. Gotcha.
I'm on mute now.
Okay.
Dangerous.
All right. Seeing no other new, let's move on to the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting of July 8th of last year?
Yes.
Yes.
That's
Yes. Yes.
Anyone have any additions or changes? Okay,
I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes.
that was Jean made a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Dennis got in before you, Lee, so Dennis
that's-
Duke had
That's
second.
quite all right. I'll
And
have another
Chinyere,
turn.
you can put your hand down now. Any discussion of the minutes? Any member of the public who make us to make a comment on the minutes before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor? No, I guess we have to do a roll call, don't we?
Yep.
So
Yep.
Alyssa, roll call, please.
Okie doke. Aguajito Oaks. Oh, sorry. I'm saying one that's not here. Alta Mesa,
Yes.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Yes.
Deer Flats,
Yes.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Yes.
Downtown,
Yes.
Fisherman Flats, Fisherman Flats?
Yes, I had to unmute myself, sorry.
No worries. Glenwood?
Yes.
Yeah. Monterey Vista?
Yes.
New Monterey?
Yes.
Oak Grove?
Yes.
Old Town?
Yes.
Skyline?
Yes.
Villa Del Monte?
Yes.
That looks like a motion carried. Moving, the next item on the agenda is public comments. This is for any member of the public can address NCIP on an item that's within our purview that is not on the agenda. If can please raise your hand, or I'm sure there's a way to do it in phone too, but do we have any member of the public who wishes to address us? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission and just one thing, isn't there something we have to do an announcement about the Zoom meeting and all that?
There
Melissa?
is, yes,
Yeah.
and I'm just looking for it. Here we go.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I jumped ahead and didn't allow you guys time to do that, so
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Rick. So we encourage members of the public to join our meeting via Zoom Gov, which is a secure service for use by government agencies. Joining on Zoom is preferred because there is no lag time when you are connected to the meeting. However, this meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with an approximately 10-second delay, and also on Comcast channel 25 with a delay of up to 90 seconds. If you plan to make a public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom Gov on the app or by telephone, making sure you join in time to accommodate the delay. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer or phone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. Since this meeting has already begun, you'll find the agenda under the Recent tab. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, it's a toll-free number, then enter the meeting ID, which is number 161-116-7503. And if prompted to enter a participant ID, press the pound key. Additional information is available at the top of tonight's agenda, and detailed instructions on using Zoom are also available at monterey.org/public-meetings. To make a public comment, please raise your hand using Zoom, or if you are connected by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute yourself. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. We ask that public commenters turn off television or computer speakers or go into another room while connected by phone, as any background noise will interfere with the broadcast. Each public speaker will be called on in order that their hands were raised. The chair has designated a 3-minute time limit for tonight's meeting, with a countdown timer shown on the screen. I'm looking at Alyssa. If you are connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. Please stay within your time limit so that you won't need to be cut off. And thank you. We look forward to receiving your public comment.
But just in case there's anyone who didn't know how to connect before and wants to do a public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on then to the next agenda item, number 3, which is presentation of the NCIP
I
program.
think you got Tom.
Rick, Tom Rowley is raising his hand.
Tom Rowley is also present, Alyssa, so if you could add him to it. So Tom, you're not public, you're a committee member, so you'd be making your comments under committee comments.
I need to tell you, the system is not working. I had to go back and go online to the specific connection that Alyssa sent us. I could not log on the regular zoom.us. And I think that's why we don't have many people on, because the system did not work the way it's supposed to. Thank you.
Tom, we've got 24 in the panelist and 8 attendees in general public, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So, okay, agenda item 3, presentation of NCIP active projects. Tom, you want to?
Thank
Take it
you.
away.
Yes. And let me share my screen here. Here we go. Everyone see that? Sure why.
Mhm.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. Oh, here's good evening. This is I'm Tom Hardy, Senior Engineer, City of Monterey. And this is the active projects report. These are the projects that are active, that are in various stages of the construction, design, and whatnot. And I just have them on the screen at the moment just to show everyone just the projects that are currently in progress. I was hoping that we could just kind of page through all the projects, and just if anyone had any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Just one thing before we got started in the meeting, I asked Tom about the budget column is the entire funding for the project, not just NCIP funding.
Correct.
Because we did not give 1.1 million to Solicitor Ball Field, for example. So it is a bit confusing in that thing. Likewise, the Del Monte Beach Casa Verde, we did not give $1 million to that either. There's other sources of funding for a number of these. These are also the projects that were not defunded during when the council eliminated the vast majority of NCIP projects and took the funding. These are the safety ones and other ones that they kept active.
That's correct.
So does anyone have any questions on any of these projects, or do you want me to go through the list?
I have a question from Glenwood.
Okay, Lee?
I'm looking at the Iris Canyon radar signs. My 2 signs are up. They've been up for, God, years.
Yes,
We were still meeting in person when these things went up.
there's an issue apparently with, I guess, the reliability when we went out to check them, and actually we checked them this week. Someone was out there, and when they drove by, it didn't flip on. So we just want to make sure that they're operating at 100% before we close out the project. There's still a question whether they're operating.
They go on and off. They go on and off depending on how much sunlight that, and of course we haven't had a lot recently, but also because the trees in that area need to be clipped to allow the sunlight to get to those radar signs that are right by the overpass.
I have a question.
Marilyn?
What does Eden balance mean?
I'm assuming that's ending balance, Tom?
Well, Eden is the software program we use to keep track of our projects. So it's just
okay. So it's not ending
it's an Eden.
Cool.
It's called an Eden report, but it's the current balance. Well, it's the balance as of January 5th. So as of last week, that's what the balance in the city system is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Marilyn. I assumed it was a screwed up abbreviation.
Rick, I have a question.
Richard?
Yes, could Tom quickly explain which projects we can cross off that are completed?
Yeah.
And if there's shortfalls?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that, Richard. So there are actually 4 pages, and we're only looking at the first page at this point. But you can see the second one down, the Del Monte Beach Boardwalk Repair and Sand Mitigation Project is complete. So we will be closing that one out. The 4th line down, the San Carlos Beach replace sidewalk project was completed about a year ago as well. So that will be, it says compete, but it is complete. That will be closed as well. I'm gonna flip down to the second page.
Yeah, because the comments on the report you're showing are not on what we got in the.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And what have I got to do to get, there we go. The Lighthouse EIR preliminary engineering project is complete and closed. The citywide bicycle lane improvement plan is also complete. We're just waiting for the final invoices. That one is $191 over budget. So anything in parentheses is a negative balance. The El Dorado Street radar speed sign is operating, and that is complete. So that one will be closed out.
And thank you. That was actually missing for about 1.5 years or 2 years, but it's there and working.
You got it. The North Fremont traffic adapted system, the work is complete on it. We're going through the final punch list items and waiting for the final invoices. So that will be complete very soon. Here, I'll give a moment just for everyone to look at these projects, which are all active. The Mar Vista radar sign. That one, we're trying to get that started. We've learned that due to the supply chain issues, apparently, that the cost of getting the actual radar mechanism, the sign itself, has gone up significantly. So we're looking for additional sources of funding on that one. And then the 4th page, are all active. So is that what you were looking for, Richard?
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions on the active projects report?
Are those pages in the agenda packet?
They're in the agenda packet, but not with the comments column filled in completely.
Okay, thank you.
So
Question?
Tom, if you could get out to us after this meeting, what you actually showed, so we have
Yes,
it,
yes, we'll do.
that'd be great.
Got it.
Quick
Is
question.
there any, Tom,
Yep.
go ahead. Tom
Yeah.
Rowley.
Tom Raleigh from Fisherman's Flats. There's one item that was reported as completed that's not completed, and that's the traffic calming study for Fisherman's Flats. There's a city council meeting in September in which it was tabled. There's action to wrap that up that requires a letter deleting something from the final study. And that was on Tom's part to draft up something. You have our input, which was given about the study was printed without any input or coordination or review by the neighborhood. And there was inaccuracies and incorrect information that needs to be deleted from the final report, which unfortunately was put out in hard copy and submitted to the city council for approval. It was tabled. It has not come back for correction. It still needs to be corrected. So I want to just go on record, make sure that that gets done. That's still an outstanding project that is not signed off. Thank you.
Yep, and that's before council, so we will just kind of follow that up. Tom, we had spoken after the meeting on that one, so we will. It's not closed or anything. We'll wrap that up.
I'm also not seeing it on this list.
No, I was looking for it as well. So
No, it's not.
Rick, a further comment?
Sure, Richard, and then, or actually, Richard, Jean had her hands up, then we'll go to you. Jean, go ahead.
Marvis, excuse me.
You're okay now.
We're wondering about what is the expected increased cost on the Mar Vista radar sign, Tom?
the cost is, it came in, we got an estimate from Bear Electric within the last month. It was $18,000 or $19,000. So we're about $7,000 to $8,000 short on that.
Thank you.
Hey, Richard?
Yes, Tom, I was looking at this list and the council did not defund these projects. It's been, is it almost 2 years?
Yes.
And my question is, I have no idea what your staffing level is now. And this is a list that you have been working on for 2 years, but I don't know what support you have for completing these projects and how long it's going to take before we start talking about the other items on the agenda.
Yes, we can develop a schedule for each of these projects. Several of them are close and they'll be done this year for sure. There's a couple of the construction ones for the intersections will be done, but we can do that as well.
I guess the question is how short-staffed is engineering? Steve, Steve Whittree has his hands up, so I'm kidding. He's going to tell us.
I can't see anyone right now. So.
Yeah, it's okay. Steve, go ahead.
Steve.
Hi, guys. Steve Whittree, Public Works Director for City of Monterey, and City Engineer as well. Yeah, staffing is a real challenge for us right now. Actually, in the last 4 weeks, I've lost 3 more engineers, 2 seniors and an assistant engineer. The market is really tough for us right now. Other locations in the area, so we lost one to Salinas. Salinas is giving essentially hiring bonuses to engineers in the order of $20,000 to go work for their city. It's really hard for us to compete with that. Staffing is a challenge. We do have recruitments that are ongoing right now. They're released. We are actually also looking at a different model for some delivery, which is more of a program manager, a project manager, which may or may not require a professional engineering license. That's something that we're developing with HR and city manager's office. So staffing is a challenge right now. We do have Tom. He's staffed as a senior engineer. He works for. He split his time during COVID, during the shutdown, with development review and NCIP. So he was not charging his time fully with that. We also have use of Cody, who is a technician with us. He's been on board for about a year and a half, as well as Max Reiser, who's battled some issues with COVID as well. He's expected to come back on duty to assist with the NCIP process as well. So NCIP is a priority for us, and we are looking forward to completing these projects and actually kicking this project back off when we get the new projects on board in July or August timeframe.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any other member of the committee have a question on this agenda item before I go out to the public? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to make a comment on this agenda item? Okay, I'm not seeing the public at the moment, so.
Oh, Hans raised his hand.
Hans?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Hans. Go ahead.
Okay. I was with the understaffing issue. I mean, if we only complete these projects, if we put every effort into the active projects, how many years is Monterey tied up with just doing these projects before we do the rest? I'm worried that we're going to get in the same hole and even deepen that hole that we're in, where we have stacks and stacks and stacks of projects and we're never going to get them done. So I wanted to kind of get a feeling, will all these active projects be done by the end of 22 or the end of 23? If only we work on those. Thanks.
Thank you, Hans.
So I can jump on that a little bit too, if you'd like an answer to that, Chair. Essentially, what we're looking at is trying to, sorry, my cat's going crazy. What we're trying to do is finish these projects as quickly as possible. Some of the projects on our list, Aeneas Bridge, for example, are projects in themselves that take a little while to accomplish. And I think that we can fall into a trap, we can see ourselves falling into a trap where a project which has a long time frame to complete is on the books for a while. I understand the frustration that we've had with many of our longtime members and some of the projects that we were on the books for far, far too long. That is something that we're committed to not having repeated. It's not going to happen again. We're not going to get into a situation like that. Part of the process that we're doing and going to try to make more clear as we work through the process for looking at projects to be completed is providing the NCIP members as well as the City Council an estimated timeline for completion for a project as it's going towards approval. So if we have a project that is a study, for example, that may take a couple of years, we want to make sure that the entire public and the committee as well as City Council knows that that project will take a couple of years. And similarly, if we have a project that should take a very short period of time, we'll note that as well and hold the fire to our own feet to make sure that we're getting those accomplished in their short order. So the timelines are a dual-edged sword for us. One, to provide protection so people know, and the other aspect is to hold ourselves accountable to make sure they're done appropriately and quickly to make sure the NCIP is successful and can look to projects with pride.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Oh, I've got. Looks like Jean, your hand's raised.
Thank you. I think we discussed this at the last meeting, but if we didn't, perhaps we could incorporate all the timelines when we review active projects so that every time it's reported, there's an accounting of how far we are and when you think it'll end, so that we're up to date with you and to bring it to everyone's consciousness if something's going too slowly.
Thank you, Jean. Any other comments on this agenda item?
This is Kurt from downtown.
Hey, Kurt.
Hi. One other thing that's not on this list, and that is there's an item like the Pearl Street tree project was completed, but I don't see that that's on the list. Perhaps, Tom, you can also put the ones that have been completed within the last 2 years.
Okay, I'll work with Alyssa to try and pull that together. But
Because
yes,
I think there's a couple of others that were completed, but that are not on this list.
yes, there's a number of projects that are.
Yeah, so that would help everybody understand that some things have been done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Kurt. Tammy Jennings.
Yeah, hi. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. These are the active projects. They're not the ones that we totally crossed off. There were still some that we didn't, I don't know, defund. I don't know if that's the right word, but there were some projects that we did put through.
Correct.
Okay, but they're not on here. These are just the active ones, correct?
The ones that the council defunded are not on that list. We're getting to that in one of the next agenda items. We'll be discussing what to do with those.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Marilyn?
Pardon my ignorance, but on the project, the numbers, what do those mean? Some of them look like they were started in 2002 and others, anyway, what do those numbers mean?
Generally, so I'll jump in here. So on this page that we're looking at right now, the where it says NIP 2002, the numbering system changed in 2020. So in general, the first two numbers, there's 4 digits at the end, represent the year that the project was approved in. So the one above it there, 51 and 1923 was a 2019 project. The one above that was from 2019 as well. So those are really the last 4 numbers. The first 2 digits of the last 4 numbers are the year that the project was approved in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except for the NIP, the Casnovo tree study, which says NIP 2002.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's not a year. That's just a number.
Well, it's a number. It was like the second approved project in year 2020. It looks like it was 2002, but it was 2002.
Okay, so
thank you.
When you have ones that don't begin with NIP, that's the old structure, old numbering system?
Correct. Yeah. And
Okay.
like the one above it there, 51, that's the department that the project fell under. N is for NIP. And then again, 19 is for 2019. And then this was the 23rd project that was approved that year.
Thank you.
Or number 23.
Well, I like that my radar speed sign that was approved in 2016 is finally done. I just couldn't resist, Tom, sorry.
I can't say anything to that. Wow.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this agenda item? Okay, there's no action required on this. This was an informational report.
Correct.
We'll move on to the first public appearance item, item 4. Receive a report on how to proceed with the NCIP program. Take it away. This, to me, is also a follow-up of our meeting from July, where we had asked for a number of things so we can help decide how we're going to move forward. I'm assuming you're going to show us the revised estimates for the top 10 projects.
We have the revised estimates, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. So I wanted to just begin again with the project history of what's happened in the last couple of years since 2020. In January of 2020, we started the new program cycle. That, as you recall, was when we used to meet in person. I think I attended one of those meetings. And then in March was when the pandemic began, and we all started working from home. In April of 2020, City Council, well, actually in March, they began to realize like we're going to be in big trouble because the economy stopped effectively. So they scrambled to find funding to keep the city afloat. And so that's when in April 2020, a number of, 120 approved NCIP projects were defunded. And that occurred in April on the 21st in 2020. So these are the defunded projects that we're talking about. Since then, we have had one meeting, which was last July on the 9th, the minutes you approved earlier this meeting. In August of 2021, City Council adopted the new NCIP policy and procedures manual, which I'd like to just kind of step through some of it. You've all received it. It's in the agenda for tonight's meeting. And then now is when we're looking at beginning the new program cycle. So in the adopted manual, this is actually like the, well, let me go down one slide. Here's the flow chart of the cycle. This would be considered the orientation meeting for this year, is what we're kind of starting with. And I'm going to go back to the previous slide. We'll get to this one. The first thing that's usually done at this meeting, my understanding, is that we discuss parking permits and the NCIP contacts list. Those will be handed out Alyssa will be getting that information to everyone who's interested. The parking permits are for the representatives and alternates to go look at the projects that are proposed every year, and they're issued just for that year. If people are interested in having those, please contact Alyssa for that. The conflict of interest, this in the new manual is it's an important piece of the new manual. And I lost the notes here for that one. But effectively, they've changed it. So I believe in the past, also the any project that is back up one step, for a representative who owns real property in the city of Monterey within 500 feet of any proposed project, that representative has to recuse himself or herself from the voting on it because it is presumed to have a potential impact on the value of their property. So the Fair Practices and Procedures Commission has developed procedures. So this is one of the rules that we are following as a city. It's a state regulation effectively. So any project that's located within 500 feet of real property that you as a representative of your neighborhood will require you to recuse yourself from voting on it, or there is an option to go to the committee and get a notice of exception, which I think is kind of difficult. So effectively, any project that's within 500 feet of property that you own, you will have to be recused from voting on that project. For projects that are located within within 500 feet to 1,000 feet of property that you own, there is more, but it may also be a project that you recuse yourself on. There are requirements that if it changes the value of your property somehow, even though it's within 1,000 feet, if that's a possibility, it's best to recuse yourself from that. And we can get into all these kind of issues before voting. So before voting, staff will have a map, we'll do a GIS analysis and locate all of the projects that are proposed with all of the properties that you as representatives of the neighborhood own. We'll basically draw a 500 and a 1,000 foot circle around your property and look at the projects that are within those that you'll either be, you'll have to recuse yourself from, or we'll have to figure out whether it's appropriate to recuse yourself or not. So I apologize, I'm missing my notes here on my desk somewhere. But is that making sense? That's kind of an important one.
Kurt, you have your hand up. Do you have a question or comment related to conflicts of interest?
Yeah, just to remind everybody, I was able to get a letter from the Fair Practices Committee and I was able to vote on the Pearl and Figueroa. So it is, you can, if it's not going to affect your property, it's possible to get a letter that says you can vote. And the city attorney is very helpful with getting you the letter.
Oh, good.
So if anybody does wind up in that situation, go talk to the city attorney.
And do it sooner rather than later.
Yes, I get it right away.
Yeah.
Because the state does not move fast.
That's right.
Good.
Hey, Tom?
And then just to clarify, anything over 1,000 feet from real property that you own is fine. That's probably the normal situation. So that's the conflict of interest. In the new NCIP manual, there's a new neighborhood map that actually I didn't even make a slide on, but basically all the properties located within the city of Monterey are now included in a neighborhood. We added the Ryan Ranch neighborhood, which doesn't have any residential properties in it yet, but we wanted to set that up for the future. This all kind of goes back to reworking the NCIP manual. It goes back to the grandeur report that occurred in 2019. These are all the city's kind of responses to that to make sure that we're following the recommendations and guidelines that they developed. So one of the issues they had was that not everyone who lived within the city was in a neighborhood, so they couldn't participate in the NCIP program. This is a way that allows everyone to be represented. It just becomes more transparent, which is another benefit and a big goal of public process. So any questions?
Tom, I've got a question for Lee. Lee, didn't you all take Merrill Gardens?
Yes.
So Merrill Gardens is shown as part of Alta Mesa. It's actually part of Glenwood. And I would also give MPC to Glenwood.
That kind of, we always thought was ours anyway.
Yeah, I just, the map needs a little bit of updating, and I suggest everyone takes a look at it to see what has been added to your neighborhood, which I guess is the striped kind of filling of the color. So Kurt, you have Lake El Estero now. Not that anyone lives there officially. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, and let's see, where am I? Okay, I think that was we're on the flow chart now. So this again is in the manual. Just we're at the orientation meeting this evening. The next, the way it will work is we'll have the projects for submittal. If anyone has new projects, they can submit them. We would then go through the project screening, and then we'd start reviewing the projects. We have the selection night later in the year. And then once the projects are selected, we bring them to council and do the CEQA analysis on all of them as well. So that's similar to the old schedule, is my understanding. So there shouldn't be anything.
Yes, it is. It's tonight, though, I think we're going to have a discussion and potential action on what we're dealing with on the previously approved projects that were defunded. And how much, if anything, will be allocating to those, and how much, if anything, will be allocated to a new process. So, that's a big part of what this meeting needs to resolve, so we know whether we're going forward with soliciting projects or not.
Right. So, perfect timing on that comment, because now we're at just ready to discuss the status of the defunded projects. So legally, the defunded projects, we've learned over the last 2 years in working with the city attorney's office, they are actually no longer approved projects. They have been vetted, so we know that they've passed that first step, getting through that, but they still have to go back, have to be approved by NCIP committee, referred to city council for funding. And what we are thinking is that in order to ensure the transparency and equity on all the projects, that the eliminated projects, the ones that were defunded, will be submitted for consideration, for discussion with any new projects that would be submitted. And we're right now, the next agenda item is discussing the schedule for the year, but that we would be looking at the defunded projects and any new projects that came in this year. The way that will work then is the representatives will vote to So we'll do the voting as we did last time, where everybody votes between 1 and 10. Hold up your card. The projects with the highest scores will be ranked in order, like highest to low. The projects then will be forwarded to City Council for moving forward. The City Council will look at that, and that will all be based upon the funding that's available for this year.
So basically, what we discussed in their July meeting has been totally ignored. Because there's no point if we're feeling that we have projects that were gone through. Yes, technically they are no longer quote unquote approved projects. They were approved by this body, they were voted on by this body, they were approved by the council. So if we were to say those come first, there would be no funds available for new projects unless we decide to bifurcate the process. So what you're saying is we're going to go through an entire process for new and have 140 existing ones all up, and we're going to have to vote on all of them all over again. And the people that were waiting for 8 years for their projects to get done are going to have to go battle for them all over again.
Yeah. And I see that Steve Wittry has his hand up, and he's got more experience on the history of this. So Alyssa, can you let Steve?
Yep. Thank you, Tom. I don't know if you can hear me, but I don't want to say, it's a little bit strong to say that it was ignored. I think what we had to do was look at the situation that was presenting us and trying to make sure that the process was as transparent and fair for everyone involved in the process. I understand, and we all understand, and the City Council, as well as the City Attorney's Office understands, that a lot of heartache and a lot of sweat and a lot of sweat equity was put into getting those projects approved. Unfortunately, when the projects were defunded, they no longer existed at all in the system. They're gone. The only way to work through this process that's fair throughout the process and is open and transparent to the public is if they are reestablished and re-voted on through this priority process. It's a voting process. In reality, we've never not taken or never have stopped taking new projects. We've always set a deadline for when projects are cut off. We have gotten projects suggested, they're put in a queue, and then we have a cutoff date. Putting any new projects that get submitted side by side with older projects that may be very important or that may have lost some interest, and letting the new NCIP group vote on them is the most equitable and transparent process for the city and its residents to understand how projects are approved and how projects can move forward in the NCIP program. It's a situation that is not, it's not lost upon us that it's unfair. It's not lost upon us that part of the problem was that we could not deliver projects timely. That's not lost on anyone, trust me. The only process that we do have now, we need to move forward trying to be as fair and equitable to everybody, to the new residents, to old residents, and understanding what are the most important projects for residents of the city and how those projects can move forward timely. We don't have enough funding to reapprove all of them. We have about $3 million, probably a little bit north of 3 million, actually. We're doing fairly well in our recovery. But the only way to move forward is to make sure that everything is standing side by side, and then the NCIP committee members can vote their conscience, decide which projects are best for the city, which projects they feel should go forward. Those would be weighted higher than projects they think should be put on the side. That is understandable to the public. It's understandable to the committee. It's understandable to council. If we try to go back into history, as I said, it's completely unfortunate. It's completely Public Works' issue that we couldn't get those projects done. But it's very difficult to take a project that may be 8, 9, 10 years old and try to say that it's still relevant or more important than another project with limited funding. It wasn't ignored, it was taken into consideration, but at the end of the day, we had to look at what was the most favorable, transparent, sound way to move forward.
I beg to differ, Steve, but people differ. I'm also only one vote. So I think it's important we open it up for the rest of the committee to voice their views, because I know what was said in July, and it was nowhere close to what's being proposed now. And there's an equity to folks who waited for 8 years that, sorry, they're not being listened to. So, but again, I'm one. I've got some hands raised. Marilyn.
I'm not proposing this, but I'm wondering, why can't we just decide we'll take no new projects this year and we're just approve those that were defunded before, and that will be all we approve for this year? Can we do that if we want to?
The challenge.
That's actually what our July vote was to, in effect, do or consider doing once we got revised numbers.
The challenge with that is that by only going to front, so the way the projects were defunded was not by a method of what is older, newer, or what is able to be done. The way that projects were defunded, where they were looked at, was what is safety, what has other dollars pending on it. If it was a match for grant, for example, which is some of those projects you saw for $1 million plus, the NCIP portion was a grant, so we didn't want to lose the matching for that. Or safety projects. Those projects were funded to go forward. Projects that were not deemed to be safety projects primarily were the ones that were defunded. So what happens is, if we go that direction, safety projects cannot be considered, and they may be more important to folks in this community than a project that may have been on the books for 8 years in that process. And that's, the example we gave was the fuel reduction aspect of it. Fuel reduction has been the top priority for NCIP for a long time. In order to allow any new projects to come forward, fuel reduction was not defunded. Fuel reduction went forward, and it happened. In order for new projects to come in, historically, we've had safety projects come forward.
However, Steve, what we could do is bifurcate the funding, and as a committee decide to do, we're going to allocate 75% of funds to previous projects, 25% to new. That gives new projects a chance to get funded, but we're still moving forward with honoring our commitments to the people and previous commissions and neighborhoods. Dennis, you want to go ahead?
Dennis, you muted.
So much fun watching my hands move. How much money was taken aside and decommissioned, if you will? Wasn't it $8.5 million or so?
About 9 million.
9 million. And how long did the city put projects on abatement during that process?
What do you mean by I didn't put on abatement? I'm sorry, I don't.
Effectively, we didn't do anything in NIP for 2 years. Was it 3 years or 2 years?
Two. There was 2 cycles that were not done.
Okay, so if we did what Rick was saying and put 2/3, 3/4 towards doing the old projects, in about 4 or 5 years, we might be able to catch up on what we spent time with the public getting approved. And I spent on the Windermere downhill part 6 years gathering the funds to be able to do that. And we will never get that approved in any one cycle going forward with the fund restrictions that we've got. That's silting the federal ocean in where we were trying to fix a problem there. That is a major project, a major problem, and took 2 studies and 3 or 4 funding cycles to get the funds necessary to do that project. Effectively, it's killed. There's not a chance that it's going to come back. Yet we went through all the work over those years to get that approved, to get that in the projects, to have the public know that it's there. I think it behooves us as members of the committee to look at the projects that were in the past decide which ones were not worthy of carrying forward, and recommend that they be defunded or be taken out of consideration of the past historic approved projects. Otherwise, we're taking all of our history and saying it's nonsense. And who wants to believe that we can do something going forward if we don't respect where we've been and gone through the process with what we've done in the past?
Kurt?
Yeah, so I just want some clarification. Steve, are you saying that all of the defunded projects would have to be resubmitted?
No, what I'm
Somebody
saying is per the new approved project manual, submissions for projects can come from anyone within the city. What I'm suggesting is that all the defunded projects, the 120 projects that were defunded, would be resubmitted as projects. They could become from staff, they could come from the committee, it really doesn't matter. They would become into the queue, into the hopper, if you will. All 120 projects would be placed into the hopper, and they would be side by side with new projects. And then the committee, as they're voting, could determine which projects are more priority than other projects without the need for a bifurcation, without the need for a dual system. Well, what happened is that as certain projects were more passionate or more fought for or had more history, they would gain more points because that's what the history would bring. So what I'm suggesting is that voting process where everything is side by side allows for the history, allows for the homage to the past to occur while still having an opportunity for new projects to come forward and raise their head among those that should go forward as well. By doing it in one package, I have one effort to go through as opposed to some kind of a bifurcated process where I have to do two different votes and different monies and trying to maneuver a financial system that really becomes problematic. I think that if it happens organically through that one vote, we'll get to where we're talking about with that split.
So the committee actually could decide as we're voting that the older projects are more important than the new
Exactly
ones.
correct. Exactly.
Okay. That's what okay, good.
Okay, April?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I tend to side with you, Rick. I talked with my cohort this afternoon, and we said, look at all the years that all of you have said we put into getting a project on base. In fact, I hate to harp on it, but our little park, which got neglected, I got put on hold, I don't know how many times about, yeah, we're going to take it to the school board. Yes, we're going to do this and that. Never got done. The young man who wanted the swings in the park is now in high school. This is, this is ridiculous. A lot of the things I agree with you. We gave people, that was one of the reasons, people have a voice. They can go ahead and they can say, we would like this. Now, if we wipe it out, that just disillusions me from the whole process. The whole process is worthless. If we can't honor at least the people who still want these projects, if we go back to our neighborhoods and say, here's what's on our list. Do you all still want me to go forward with this project? I believe they should have priority way and above over the any new projects that come in, because we're going to get backlash. Our neighbors, our friends, our neighborhoods are going to say, how could you put project X ahead of this one, which was proposed 5 years ago, let's say. I agree. I think we have to lend priority to give any credence to our program to projects that are the ones that now have been defunded.
Thank you, April. Jean?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Two different and separate things. Our responses highlight the deep problem that has been going on with NCIP for years. And that is projects are neglected, they aren't started, they're delayed, and they are ignored. And we've been complaining about this for years. And now the chicken, we're paying the huge price in having this program lose a whole lot of respect in the community. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to say, I don't see a way that we as a committee can pick and choose from the de-appropriated, defunded list. I don't think we have the authority to do that. It needs to be a public process, fully vetted. Here's an example of one of the problems. On this list are all the projects from 2020 past the cutoff point. When we voted in 2020, we had 71 projects and then a few recommended cutoffs, and then and they were all included into defunded projects. So to me, that's kind of a mess. I don't know how we get out of that other than to throw them all in the pot and do it again. But I don't think there is a fair choice, and I think it's going to be horrible for the reputation of NCIP. That's all.
Thank you, Jane. I just want to remind folks, in our July meeting, we discussed at length an entire process for doing it using the point system of what was allocated. So in other words, what was the first thing voted on, ends up having more points than ones that are later on. So there is a way to do it. Whether or not we choose to go that route or are allowed to is a whole different question.
How do you blend the years?
There was a whole way proposed for that. I got to pull back out, but we're talking about highest points first.
But we're comparing points between years.
Yes, but we're also comparing the highest value ones that at a time that never got done or getting done before one that had less points between the year. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a way to do it. Again, it's a potential. We, as a committee, we've got to decide. Tom, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm still on. I think I'm on mute. I would agree with what Rick is saying, because this is what we discussed at the July meeting. And this is a whole change in policy about throwing all of the projects that the city council defunded. We were told these projects would still be here, and we were going to consider it and break the list down. I believe Skyline Force made the motion, and it was a fairly sophisticated motion. We spent a lot of time discussing that, and we knew it was going to be complicated. And something being complicated is something that this committee has never feared taking on. Unfortunately, these Zoom meetings are very difficult to exchange information, to look at graphic information. And I hope we get out of these damn Zoom meetings as soon as possible. And pardon my language, but these Zoom meetings, we cannot get the exchange of information that you can in a live meeting. And the sooner we get back to live meetings, the better off we will be. Thank you.
Okay, Steve, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to respond briefly to the points allocation system that you're referring to. And actually, we did look at that. As you look at that, you peel the onion layers back, it's problematic, and it's not equitable in any fashion. Because the problem is that when the voting happened in previous years, it would go by rounds. And the first round, you would take somebody off the board and they would have so many points. And then the second round would come up and they would have so many points. In a strict allocation of point aspect of it, something in the second round could have more points than the last project in the first round. That's just the way the process worked. As we look at that over the history of the projects, and I say, once again, there are too many projects, and that's clearly the fault of Public Works in delivering them. I'm owning that as much as possible. I can appreciate that. But what we're left with is an inequitable point system that becomes uncomparable. It doesn't compute. It doesn't, particularly when you go year to year, year over year, round 2 to round 3 and so forth. There's no way that's clear and transparent to the public to do that. It would add confusion. I understand what Mr. Rowley is saying in terms of we don't want to back away from something that's hard. We do not want to back away from things that are hard. We do not want to back away from things that are complicated, but we need to pause and back away from things that are not transparent and clear. We need to be transparent. We need to figure out and explain to the public how projects got pushed forward. This is a once time that we actually defunded project. This has never happened before. We need to find a rational way to go through it and come out of it. Or as was pointed out, this is a black mark on NCIP. It's a black mark on public works. Frankly, it is. And how do we come out of that black mark? We have to come out of that black mark being transparent, being clear, and being accountable for how those decisions to move forward were made. So as we look forward in this process, the only way to do that is to have a clear, fresh start, identifying those projects that have that history, identifying the projects so it is well known that this project was approved previously, an old project versus, and you can identify what comes forward out of that process. So that's where this method comes from. It's not we're ignoring NCIP. It's not we're ignoring the aspects of it. We're looking at how we can move forward in a clear and transparent way that is clear to anybody who would be looking at the documents going forward.
Actually, Steve, we dealt with the whole aspect of round endpoints in July. There was an entire list done in priority order where if something was voted on in round one, those happened first in order of points, then round two in order of points. So it is very transparent. It is very open. Now, if they choose not to go with that, that's up to the committee. But it's now up to the committee to decide how we're moving forward. We're the ones entrusted with doing this process. So, Dennis, I see your hand up.
No, I'm not muted. Okay. If we have to start over on something like the Windermere waterfall drops, that again, that was a 4-year run or 4 or 5 year run of getting the funding to get to a point where we could actually build the project. Okay, that's, we've been dead for 2 years. That was put together 3 or 4 years ago. We're talking a decade before we can even think about it. Effectively, it's a non-starter. It's why bother?
And we've already spent over $80,000 on that project on just one of the phases of it.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we went through all the effort to put that in, and if we're starting over again, will we have funding tranches that we put together to try and get a project done and do another 4-year stint to get the money together to even do a project that we already voted on as being worthwhile? It's disheartening.
Gene.
I want to commend your mention, Rick, of the waste that the July meeting was, and second that. And I wish we had had this kind of input in July. And I know there was COVID, everybody's going to cry COVID, but I'm going to cry that, again, NCIP has been ignored for years, and it was ignored in July because we didn't get that quality of recommendation or the explanation. And once again, we aren't getting the support from the city and from the staff that we need to pull off the NCIP committee.
Thank you, Gene. At this point, I think nothing has hands up.
I don't have a hands up.
Okay,
on my
Richard,
screen.
go ahead. And then after Richard will be Bella.
Okay, I agree with what everybody is saying here. I want to address participation. If you look at those 140 projects, we had endless meetings at the city council chambers, Hilltop Park, Schultz Park, the youth center, Casanova Oak Knoll, and we had hundreds, if not thousands, of people participate in it. Rick, can you tell me how many public are participating tonight?
There's, other than the panelists, I'm seeing 9 attendees.
Now, we had other meetings. Is it was standing room only. I want to bring up the woman that brought up the handicap issues in Monterey, how passionate she was about her projects, how it got passed by MCIP, how it got passed by the council. If she's not there to advocate for those projects this year, we're in the middle of the biggest surge of the pandemic in the last 2 years. We don't know what the rest of the year is going to be like, but from the numbers coming out and our fear of overwhelming our hospital, how many people are going to be participating in a Zoom meeting? What I see here is wasted lives, wasted hours, a huge disappointment on my part that the staff does not understand the heart of this program. And I want to find a way that this committee can get back on track. I do not see throwing everything in the same pot. I want to address the transparency, but at this point, I have projects in which Jeff came out here. We met with our community center director, our residents here, all the neighbors. We actually went through catalogs to pick things, get approvals, and those were defunded projects. So we have to start all over again. And in the middle of a pandemic, I can't even call a meeting of my neighborhood. So we need to reevaluate this direction. I'm not in favor of what is being proposed tonight at all. And whether the chair has to sit down with or Zoom with the city attorney and the mayor, but I think we need to resolve this, because for what I'm seeing proposed, it is literally a public relations disaster. The goodwill we've built up over the 30 years. There are people that propose those projects that were so excited to get them passed in the top 10. They've passed away. How are we going to revalue these? Many of our committee people are new and they've never heard all the testimony the old timers have that got these projects approved. Yes, I think we need to go through the defunded projects. Some are impossible to do. Things have changed. The world's changed. We need to decide which ones can actually be moved forward at all, which ones are within the budget that was approved for them, or is it a whole new figure, which you asked for in July, and I don't see tonight. And rather than see the projects and the numbers come up on the screen, I need to be sent those so I can study them. I can't make decisions in 10 seconds when things are just passed by on the screen. So, Rick, I want you to proceed with what you've been saying. And I think what I hear is the rest of the committee supports that. And yes, Windermere drainage needs to be completed. I totally agree. Top project. Now, the tree study was left in the funded projects, but we no longer have a forester. I don't know how fuel reduction is going to be done. Who's going to be run that? None of this is explained to me. I've had no information on it. So I can't support what is being proposed right now. Thank you.
Okay, Bella. You can unmute.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's a bit of a naive question. Sometimes there's things that we can't change, but is there any way to split the difference and have it go for 2 years, take half of the projects this year and half of the defunded projects next year, so they're not 120 in 1 year, and then we can prioritize the ones that are defunded for maybe this year, or however you want to prioritize it, so it's split in 2 years versus just this year?
The challenge is the amount of defunded projects would take probably 4 years worth of funds to do.
Yeah, well,
Is the challenge. So
yeah.
so the question is, do we go 4 years with nothing new? Do we go take 6 years to do the defunded but get some new each year? Or as staff is proposing, we throw everything on the wall and throw all the history out. But it takes more than, it will be more than 1 year regardless of how we decide things. Anything else, Bella?
No, that was just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Tammy Jennings.
Hi, and thank you for mentioning I'm the one that's disabled and put that project up there. And yes, I was passionate about it and still am, and had a lot of other people say what a good thing that would be for the fire department getting down to the beach too. Anyway, yes, a lot of time and effort have been put into all of these projects. And I think it is an injustice to just say, forget all the past work that was put into all this stuff and, start from scratch. And I thought last July, didn't we approve or say that some of them were going to go through and some weren't? And I'm not quite sure what happened to that. But anyway, I don't know what the answer is. I feel really bad for all the projects that were defunded, and that's where we're at. I don't know what the answer is, but I really don't think that all of the past projects should be just thrown out and start fresh, because there are a lot of people that just don't have it in them to go through all of the stuff again to get the projects approved to the point that they were approved. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Actually, what we voted on, I'm looking at the minutes. Dennis Duke made the actual motion to have re-estimate the base allocation and round one projects and send them to the city attorney for review and confirmation that base allocation projects may be refunded, and for the city forester to develop an estimate for the cost to complete fuel reduction projects, and for NCIP representatives to go back to their neighbors to discuss project priorities and to add in safety projects that may be from lower rounds. And that's what we voted on to have happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so we talked about moving forward, but we felt we needed to have, what are the current costs of the project? So we had, current information to be doing on, and that was definitely the way we were headed. But did we actually do it? Because we didn't have current numbers. Some of the quotes were 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
Okay. April. You need to unmute it. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yep.
I thoroughly not agree with the city's proposal. I agree with it by it appears a majority of our constituents. People put too much time and effort into getting these projects approved, and they were, at the time when they were approved, they were very excited about it, and it was not their fault that the city dragged its feet. I won't point fingers at anybody in particular, but the city dragged its feet on a lot of these projects, and they could have been completed, but they weren't. I am not in favor of accepting new projects. I would stick with maybe going back to our neighborhoods and saying, do you still want these projects that have been proposed in the past? If they say yes, then maybe when we meet again, we can talk about each of those, and maybe each neighborhood can do that. I don't know what you do with the citywide projects, though. That would be the interesting part, but that's what I think we ought to do.
Okay. Kurt.
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Yeah.
And that would be you, Rick, and Steve, talk to the city attorney because I understand about the old projects, but I'm a little concerned about not allowing new projects. If there's some extreme safety project that we need to look at, then, you know, the public might not like if we say, no, we're not going to take any new projects. That kind of doesn't reflect well on us either. But I agree, all those old projects need to be looked at and refunded, or funded. But I think, Rick, you and Steve need to talk to the city attorney and get more legal aspect on what we're trying to do here.
I've got an idea for a motion at some point, but I want to go through, make sure everyone has a chance to speak, and we have general public who have hands up as well. So, Jean.
I wonder if we could discriminate between the projects that were fully approved, funded by the council, which to me means 2019 and back. Somehow prioritize those. And then start over with all the 2020 and future projects, because the 2020 never got to the council for funding. If I recall correctly, it got as far as our vote, and we had the cutoff at like Project 71. And I would be comfortable with saying that year was not complete. It never got as far as the council's blessing. But the ones that have already been blessed by the council, which is 2019 and back, would somehow have a priority. 2020 and future projects would go into a new cycle. And I have no idea if that will work. I'm just trying.
All right. It'll be Dwayne, then Luce, then Tom, then Steve. Dwayne Peterson, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to support Kurt's and Richard's comments about reviewing the defunded list. There may be some that have overcome by events. I don't know what, but I instead of just seeing this 140 out there, there may not actually be that many that are, you know, needed anymore. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Luce.
Hi, I was a little bit late today because of technical difficulties, and I'm a little surprised to find out all these new suggestions. First of all, there were 3 years due to the pandemic in which we didn't have any projects voted or approved by the board. And now they are saying they want to get everything into one pot, the old projects, which they should have been advanced a little, if not a lot. And what's going to happen with that money approved for those projects? And then you are saying that now you have to put everything to vote because of transparency. Transparency has always been there, you know, whether it's understood or not. So now we need to revote again, and we hear everyone else, you know, reminding us what it took to get these projects. And it's not really something that we can pinpoint about why it took so long to complete them, okay? So we kind of accepted that. So, but putting them all into the pot again, it is very impractical. You know, I suggest that they finish those ones that were approved. There is money for it, okay? So finish them. And then we can start dealing with the new way or the new changes. But trying to go back and undo what it was done, it just doesn't sound right. So we need to finish that. The money was there. And start from whatever it is happening this year.
Actually, the money unfortunately is no longer there. The council took it and defunded the project. So we would have to allocate money new. The question is how we go about doing that, and do we have new things happening at the same time? And that's really the problem we're facing right now. I wish there was still money there for them. Tom, really?
Yeah, I did mention it, but on the safety items, there were quite a few radar speed signs. One that was in the hopper that got killed when the whole process from that cycle got killed was radar speed sign on Jocelyn Canyon, which has been a hazard and continues to be a hazard. So there are some important safety items that were not in the list of the 140 items that were defunded, but were pending. And we do know that we have cleanup, Greenbelt cleanup is also a funding item. I think that could be treated separately. So I think there is room to be a little more sophisticated than just throwing everything out and saying we got to start all over, put all these other projects back in the hopper. I think that it's just those of us that have been around a long time, we know how many hours and hours and hours have been spent on some of these projects. And so I support what Richard has said, Richard Russello, and what Rick has said about taking a look at these projects, and what also Skyline Forest, your Windermere project. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We recall the van tour and looking at this and trying to figure out a way to get it done. And it came up with a method to get it done over a period of time so it wouldn't kill all the balance on one project. So I think we spent so much time on this, throwing everything out and starting over from scratch just doesn't make sense. We got to be more sophisticated than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Steve, I see your hand up. However, I want to go out to the public who's been waiting for a while to speak. And then I'll come back to you once we close general public comment. Hans, you've been really patient.
Thanks. I just, one idea to maybe satisfy the city attorney as well as us is that there's no reason we can't combine projects. And one is if we go through the list like we had, and we internally discuss all the projects we want to remove or that don't go, but then start at the top of the list and put we have $3 million, put $3 million into one project, we all vote on it and give it to the city. That is one way to satisfy the city and maybe satisfy us. I don't know how that goes through, but it would be one way of possibly moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Hans. Steve, go ahead. Actually, I'll close the public hearing portion of this, bring it back to the panel. Steve, you want to go ahead? And then I'm going to speak afterwards because I'm going to make a motion.
Sounds good. Hey, what I wanted to do was clarify a couple of questions and comments that came through from the different speakers. So the base allocation projects, while they are projects, they were actually never really voted on because they were assigned dollars from those representatives, and those representatives then chose those projects to use their base allocation for. So
actually, Steve, each of them was voted on.
It was
a motion to approve each one. Each one was voted on. It did not go through the points system, but it was voted on.
They were conferred upon and voted and approved as an overall list, correct? But the actual selection of those projects, there was dollars that were pushed to each neighborhood. That process of pushing dollars to each neighborhood and assigning dollars based upon population is not something that should have happened. And that's something that we've corrected with our new process. So those are projects. They are projects that are viable. They are projects that were approved. However, just to clarify once again, when it was defunded, the projects were eliminated. They are not projects anymore. They are vetted. They have gone through a process and they can be voted on and approved again, but there is no standing. The other aspect I wanted to just clarify was Gene's point is every process that the NCIP committee has gone through and recommended projects and pushed projects through to council has gone to council and been approved. We quote unquote pulled the plug on the process when the pandemic was coming and we were talking about, should we start another process or not? And then we delayed the process because we didn't know if we had our funding or not. So just to clarify for the record, that the process that went through when we voted on those 71 odd projects and those were approved, those projects were to council and they were approved. The plug was pulled on the NCA pre-program prior to really initiating that public process back in 20. So those are the two comments I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm gonna
Rick, before you make a motion, could I make
yes,
one
go ahead,
extra
Richard.
comment? The comment is, it will be 3 years at the end of this year, and the staff is promised to finish these 26 projects. There is a hope of hiring more staff and help, but that's a hope. There's no guarantee. If we tag on another 50 projects on top of the 120 we already have, my suggestion for you to consider, Rick, is it possible to go to the council and ask them to approve that list without putting funding to it? Does that change the legal setup if the council reapproves the list?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead with my motion because it may cover what you're saying as well. I'm going to make a motion that we table this item and instruct the chair to meet with the city manager, the mayor, the city attorney, and public works director to discuss the different scenarios that we can legally approach, in particular, the potential of having what I would call a bifurcated process where some funds are dedicated to the defunded projects, some funds for new. How much of each would be up to us to decide. So to get a formal reading with NIP at the table to hear the aspects of the city attorney and the mayor's involvement. Also, as part of the motion, to reaffirm that we want to have the NIP representatives go back to their neighborhoods to review all of the defunded projects to determine if there's any that are no longer feasible, no longer wanted by the neighborhood, etc. So that can be brought to our next meeting. And I will report back to you the results of that, and we have a special meeting then to determine how we're going to move forward. Is there a second?
I will second the motion and on amendment to request that list of the defunded projects so that we could actually know what we're all talking about.
Agreed. I'm happy to have that included.
Yeah, amended, sorry, I gotta jump in. Amended with the new numbers on the list.
Correct. Whatever they've done, new numbers. Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect.
Dennis, it looked like you were going to say something. And I've got 2 hands raised for discussion of the motion.
I was going to second, but Richard beat me to it.
Okay.
My mic was off.
Okay, Gene. Go ahead.
I'm trying to.
You're
unmute.
unmuted.
Okay. The best part of that motion is that we will then have to miss the February 4th cutoff for new projects. Except it's not perfect because then we can't fund our fuel reduction. But that would succeed in tolling the floor and not putting us through the process of a year with all these what ifs and frustrations. So we have to understand we're going to be skipping a year.
I don't know that we're skipping a year, but I would hope that we meet as soon as possible. And we potentially, the February cutoff, we could, because of the unique circumstances, push that.
Well, it may be okay to skip a year.
I don't know until we know how we are
No.
gonna move forward, so. And skipping a year could be we spend all the funds on existing projects. I don't know if that's a doable way to go until we have this meeting. That's why I want to try to get the key players in this room together to discuss it. So we have real clear direction of what we can and can't do. And then it's up to, as a committee, for all of us to decide the approach. Tammy.
Yeah, I just want to say that as a person that submitted a project, it would be better to let everybody know in advance that if there may not be any projects for this year, rather than having people try to submit their things by February 4th, go through the projects and put a lot of energy into it, and then figure out, no, we can't do anything this year. In my opinion, I would rather know in advance, not this year, you know, get ready to submit and do all your work next year. This is a year to reevaluate and redo stuff and get back on track. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Tom Raleigh, I support the motion. Thank you.
We'll come back to Dennis. Steve?
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is just echo a little bit of what Jean had mentioned. It's perfectly acceptable. We can go through the process and meet with the parties mentioned there. No challenge with that. Timing, though, is going to be problematic right now for those of you who are following the city council agendas. The redistricting effort is taking an enormous amount of the city councils, the mayors, city managers, and city attorneys' time. It's really fairly unreasonable to expect a short order meeting, a meeting in short term with that party while that effort's going on. So I just wanted to make folks aware of that ongoing. They may not be following as closely as some of the other ones are about that effort and what's taking part of the city council's time. I just wanted to bring that to folks' attention.
Thank you, Steve. We'll see how important they view NIP in their response.
It's not one versus the other. There's just a lot of competing authorities. There's just a lot of stuff.
Understood. I also know how the mayor feels, and I'm sure he will carve out time for an NIP quick meeting. Dennis.
Is there anything magic about February 4th? I mean, the city put this program off for 2 years. I don't see anything magic about that date. And if the city can put off this program for 2 years, why can't we take 2 years of funding and apply it to the previous approved projects? That will come out of the wash when we work on Rick's motion. So I just throw that out there for consideration.
Yeah, my feeling is we could change deadlines because of the scenario, but let's get the meeting first. I really don't want to see us having people having to rush and do it and things either. But we need, like I said, in my feeling, we got thrown a curveball tonight. So unfortunately, we'd given our direction of where we were headed last July, and we're finding out at tonight's meeting that that's totally been changed with no advance notice. As you can tell, and neither are a lot of you as well. So I will call the question. We could have a roll call vote, please, on the motion.
Okay, Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown,
Emphatically, yes.
Fisherman Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Yes.
Monterey Vista,
Yes.
New Monterey,
Yes.
Yes.
Oak Grove,
Yes, actually, I meant yeah.
Old Town,
Yes.
Skyline.
Aye, aye, aye.
Is that a yes or a no?
It's, yes, it's
Okey
aye.
dokey. Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Okey doke.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 5, which is adopt the NCIP committee deadline and meeting schedule for development of the 22-23 NCIP program. I'm going to jump in here and move we table this item, since until we have the results of number 4, we may need to change that February date.
Totally agree and support the motion. Do in a second.
Any discussion on the motion? I guess I should also go to the public on the motion.
Yes, please.
Not seeing any hands raised from public. Any commissioners want to speak to the motion or comment on the motion?
Concur.
Okay, seeing none. Alyssa, can we take a roll call, please?
Sure thing. Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Yes.
Monterey Vista,
Yes.
New Monterey,
Yes.
Oak Grove.
Hold on, excuse me.
Nope.
That, I thought I was the rep for New Monterey.
Yes, Bill, you are.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm hearing another voice.
Sorry about that.
That's Chinieri. She's your new alt.
Okay, so, all right. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Oak Grove,
Yes.
Old Town,
Yes.
Skyline,
Yes.
Villa Del Monte.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 6, elect the NCIP chair and vice chair. Currently, I am the chair, and I believe Jamie from Del Monte Beach is vice chair. I guess we just let's open up nominations for chair first from the floor.
I nominate you, Rick.
I second the motion.
Anyone else would like to do it?
I third the motion.
Not this
You did such a great job.
Okay, I guess I'm roped in. At some point, I would like to have someone else take over, but I'll do it. I mean, it's not like we've had a lot of meetings the last 2 years, so. Lee, I see your hand up.
Yes, I would also like to have you stay as chair, particularly until we can get the situation with how we're going to handle the projects. The continuity with your leadership is very, very important. And we would, as a team, appreciate you staying on, as well as Jamie.
Okay, well, the motion is for me right now. If you all choose to vote for me, I will accept. It's sure there's no one else that wants to do it either, so.
Okay, nobody else wants to be an HOA president either. Like me.
Any member of the public wish to make a comment on? Seeing none, okay, let's go ahead and vote. Alyssa, you want to call roll for Rick Hoyer of Alta Mesa as another year as chair?
Okey doke. Alta Mesa.
I'll abstain.
Okey dokey. Casanova Oak Knoll,
Yes.
Deer Flats,
Yes.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Yes.
Downtown,
Yes.
Fisherman Flats,
Yes.
Glenwood,
Yes.
Monterey Vista,
Yes.
New Monterey,
Yes.
sorry, Oak Grove,
Yes.
Old Town, Old Town,
Yes.
Skyline,
Yes, and thank you for your service.
and Villa Del Monte.
Yes.
Okey doke.
Okay, for vice chair, I don't have any compunctions of nominating people who are not present, so I'll nominate Jamie to do another year with. If she's not here, she doesn't get to decline.
I second.
Are there any other nominations?
Rick,
And Lee, you can put your hand down.
Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, if Jamie doesn't want to do it, I would do it. She's not here tonight to defend herself.
Well, I tell you what, if you're willing to do it and you're here, I prefer to have someone be who's present and is saying it versus, committing someone who isn't present. So
I understand.
I'll change my motion to be Jean instead of Jamie. That's okay with you, Lee?
I'll second.
Okay.
Rick, I think it's also important that the vice chair participated in this meeting to understand the complexities for the meeting coming up with the mayor. So I vote yes on Jean being vice chair for that reason. It's too important.
Agreed. Any other nominees?
Please clarify who is the nominee? Isn't it?
Jean
Lee?
Raj from Monterey Vista.
Okay, thank you.
Any members of the public? Seeing none, we call roll, please.
Okay, Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach. Or excuse me, sorry, Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Yes.
Downtown,
Yes.
Fisherman Flats,
Yes.
Glenwood,
Yes.
Monterey Vista,
Yes.
New Monterey,
Yes.
Oak Grove,
Yes.
Old Town. Old Town people?
Yes.
Okay, Skyline
Yes.
and Villa Del Monte.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is NCIP spokesperson reports. I don't have any report. There's not like there's a lot that's been going on. So we'll move on to committee member comments. Anyone who's got a general comment to make, please raise your hand and I'll call you in order. Tom?
Yeah, just very quickly on the Greenbelt maintenance, which I'm sure we'll be getting to at some point. I just want to make sure that the staff, Tom, Marty, and Steve are aware that the proposal for sharing Deer Flats Park submission, and they're moving forward to get their contractor in line. The city needs to move forward similarly to get its act together to combine that where it'll be based on the square footage that's in the inaccessible area along behind Fisherman's Flats and Deer Flats Park. So we missed the boat previous years, and hopefully timely. Dave Overton from Deer Flats and the Christine Cristobal is the lead person working on that. And so her number is 238-1359. Let's not blow it again. Staff, thank you.
Okay. Lee, you have your hand up. Do you have a comment?
The comment is, you guys, let's stay well, let's get well, follow all the protocols, no more bitching and complaining. Let's look at this on the positive side so we can move forward along with the city on a positive side. And then down the road that we can all start meeting together in council chambers. So everyone, positive, please be well, stay well.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments?
Yes. Richard.
Richard.
Yes. I'd like to, my comment is about how we got here. I had no objection when the council faced this pandemic, a $40 million hit to our economy, that hit is not over yet. And I understood when they defunded the projects. I didn't complain one bit. When they decided recently to reinstitute the NCIP budget, I disagree with that. We're only about half of the city services restored so far. The most dangerous thing to have in a pandemic is optimism, because then you're shocked about what really happens. And what I'm concerned is that the council decided to start the program again, but they didn't think through the complications we're in right now. And I thought that was a major mistake of the council. And that led staff to produce what they recommended tonight. So it's a chain of events I think the council needs to fix. And I'm concerned about getting the city services back, the library fully open, the bookmobile going, the community centers open. But we're in a giant surge right now. And I really think we need to reevaluate what we're doing this year and what the city is going to need to do to survive. So I hope you bring all that up, Rick and Jean, at that meeting. But the council started this and they need to help us get through it.
Good.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think I saw William raising his hand in his picture.
Yeah, no, I'll probably send you an email or something.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. I just have one comment. I want to thank you all for your participation tonight. And I'd like to welcome Chinyera, our new member or new alternate for New Monterey as well. I hope you enjoyed your first meeting. And seeing no other comments, our meeting's adjourned. Dave, you got a comment? Or are you waving goodbye?
Goodbye.
Okay. All right, bye all.
Thank you.